Good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to New Directors, New Films. My name is Richard Panion. I'm the Program Director of the Film Society of Lincoln Center, and on behalf of the Film Society and the Department of Film at the Museum of Modern Art, I'd like to welcome you all. This year in New Directors, I think we have an especially wonderful selection of films from Latin America, which for me over the past decade has had just a renaissance. Really, I don't think there's been a time since the 1960s in which Latin American cinema has been so rich. And indeed, I think one of the great features of this selection of new directors are two terrific Brazilian films, which hopefully all of you are going to see today. The first one you're about to see is a film of just extraordinary beauty. It's a film that looks at a land with a kind of sensitivity and with a kind of eye that I haven't seen in a very long time. It really is a wonderful work and I think very promising in terms of the future for its director. So please welcome the director of Found Memories, Julia Murat.
Well, thank you very much. These kind of things make me nervous. First of all, I would like to excuse myself. I'm not going to be here for a Q&A because I have a plane to catch just now, like 7:20. So I'll just go flying to the plane. But Julia Solomonoff, who is the Argentinian producer of the film, will be here for a Q&A, and we'd like to introduce her. And that's why I would actually want to speak a little bit before the film is shown. I hope you don't mind. Well, the film it's such a long process. I had the first idea, the first draft in 1999 when I was like 19 years old. And it took 12 years to do this film. Part of this because of the financial difficulty of making this film, but also part of it because I think I needed this maturity to be able to do a film that talks about death and elderly people. So I think I had enjoyed to have this 12 years process. I hope the next one is going to be a little bit faster. But still, I think I am someone who needs time to do it. And you're going to see the film also needs time to be seen. The film starts very slow, and I think that's because I think people need to actually give time to this film to actually be able to see the change that the film has during the whole process of this film itself. So, and that's why I think I needed actually 12 years to do it. So basically, anyway, I would like very much to thank you all of coming here. And if you have anything to ask, or I'm sure Julia will be able to answer. But if it's something more personal, please send me an email. There is on the webpage of the film, there is my personal email. So anyway, it's julia@tigerfilms.com. But if you all have any questions, I would be very pleased to answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, delighted to be here with Julia Solomonoff, who's one of the producers of the film and who is, of course, a filmmaker in her own right. Just a few months ago, we had a show right here at the Walter Reed of her 2 feature films and shorts, so it's great to have you back on stage.
Thank you.
Can you tell us about how you got involved in the project?
In 2006, Julia Murat, Anna Peterberg, who's another project I'm involved with, and me, we were part of a writer's residence in Casa de América in Madrid. It was a much larger group, but because Anna and I had kids, we were separated into apartment buildings instead of being in the Ciudad Universitaria, in the campus. And Julia, because she was also sharing with the writer, so we were the 3 isolated ones that were not having the party life, although Julia managed to have a lot more of a party life, and Anna and I with kids didn't have much of that. But we would stay very, very many times coming back from it was like a 3-month stay in Madrid. We would come back and kind of exchange notes and read each other's script. And I was with Last Summer of La Bollita there, El Último Verano de La Bollita. Julia was with this project that had a very different name then. And Anna Peterberg was there with Todos Tenemos un Plan. That is a film that just wrapped with Viggo Mortensen, shot in Argentina. And we would just work together a lot and talk a lot and never even consider each other as possible partners, but just friends. And one of the things that started to happen at the end of the seminars is, although it was very good in terms of writing, we grabbed a very pessimistic time in Spain, so we got a lot of producers saying, this can't be done, this can't be done, there's no place for you here. So it got very frustrating for Julia more than for me. I was very lucky. I got the help from El Deseo, so I cannot complain. The Spaniards were great with me with both films. So Julia and I, at a certain point, were like, listen, let's give each other a year. If nothing happens, let's see how we can help each other. Julia's mom is a well-known director in Brazil, which has allowed Julia to be exposed to the filmmaking community. So she was very aware of what could be done and what couldn't be done and how to probably a first film could be put together. I had some experience too. So we were like, okay, at the end we were like, okay, I'll see you in a year and see what happens. At that point I was producing Cocalero, which is Alejandro Lande's first film. Alejandro's film is showing next Saturday, Porfirio. And so basically a year happened. She came for TIPA in Argentina for a writer's lab and came for the BAL. And I was at that point just shot Bollita. And so we kind of checked at what point were we. And I said, listen, if you need, we can try to work together. And that's basically what happened. And that's, for me, you said something at the beginning that for me was very important, that you said ever since the 60s, the dream of a kind of a Latin American community has been a dream of generations. I would say in the 70s it was kind of almost like the cry for union and some kind of independence. And it's weird how it took a while, but now we're seeing a lot more collaborations in Latin America, and I'm super happy to be part of that.
Since you were in Madrid with her, could you talk a little bit about her process of elaborating the screenplay? Because it's a very intricate and I think very interesting screenplay.
It's a very interesting screenplay, and some people may think there's not so much writing, but there was a lot of writing involved and a lot of drafts and a lot of work. This is not an easy script. For me, one of the toughest things, and it was something that Julia was very open, but at the same time very determined, was the repetition. The very first drafts, I would say half of the story was, but the repetition, even written the exact same way. I was like, listen, just to get somebody's attention, could you write the same action but with different words? At least you will feel different, But she really, really, really wanted the repetition. And that was very hard also in the editing, is how much if you don't have enough repetition, then you don't have the right and the routine. If you have too much of it, then it becomes boring. And it's the first half hour of the film. Right now, I think Rita is arriving like a minute, I don't remember anymore, but 17 or 20. But there were moments where Rita's arrival was in like minute 30 or 40. I was like, this is gonna be too hard, But there's something, like Julia said it, like a mantra, like something that needed the repetition, needed you to get familiar with those gestures and those phrases. So I would say that a lot of the writing had to do with that. And at that point, I remember she had Jorge Goldenberg as her advisor in Madrid. I had somebody else. We were not in the same group. But that was good because it gives you more kind of variety of point of views.
And finally, can you talk a little bit about the cast, where Julia found the cast and, who they are?
That was a very long process because Julia started doing this research. She said, she's been with this project in mind for a long time. Her paternal family used to have a fazenda, a cafe estancia,
coffee plantation.
Coffee plantation. Then they lost everything. But this is kind of the coffee area of Brazil. And she always was fascinated with that, and to the point that she did a research in order to write the feature, the fiction. It's called Casa de los Pais. And And basically, I think what happened is I saw the documentary, of course, but I saw a lot of the footage. She had almost all the characters there, and she was pretty sure to want to work with non-actors, but she was very very careful with the lead roles. She wasn't too sure. And in fact, there was a non-actress or a natural actor, if you want to call, that was, for me, could have totally played the lead, but she was quite old, and things were taking time, and there was a certain fear with that. So at the end, she ended up seeing a lot of theater actors, and Sonia Guedes is a very well-known actress. And I'm just gonna quote Julia because I wasn't there. So basically, Julia doesn't like casting sessions, and she was very reluctant to do like an audition. So she went to Sonia's house, and they had coffee, and there were two things that really kind of made her feel that she could be Madalena. One was the way she made the coffee. That was a very traditional way of doing the coffee. And the other was that in the middle of the conversation, she got a phone call, and she got very upset. And that kind of like, the fact that she wasn't such a nice woman kind of intrigued Julia. And with Rita was kind of a different project. There were different possibilities. And Lisa is more like a young newcomer. And it was more about, I think, her way of looking, her silence, her way of being, like a certain relaxed way of being, not too underlining. And I would say that's more or less the process, yeah.
Questions from all of you? Yes, sir.
Okay.
Questions about the role of photography in the film and the collaboration between Julia and the cinematographer.
There's two things. Quito is the one that did the still photos, the black and white, the pinhole. Lucio Bonelli is the DP, which is a very different process and a very different collaboration. So Quito has been experimenting with pinhole. I don't know how many people are aware of, the film is using the very old camera obscura kind of way that is the pinhole, and it's a very difficult technique that you don't learn for the film. You have to kind of have been practicing. And Julia Murat and Quito met and started kind of working on that together. It's one of the things that it's very difficult to control, to get the end result. And although they really incorporated a lot of accidents, if you want, there's certain things like the photo of her and the wall that had to have some kind of precision. It couldn't be so ghostly in a way. It is ghostly, but you know who you're seeing pretty clearly. So that was a very rich process, and the whole idea of pinhole was super important for Julia. She comes from a fine arts background, and she knows a lot about photography. And for me, as a producer, I would say that was my biggest challenge, because when I came into the project, I knew she was very exquisite, and what I was going to provide was the image, basically, the DP and the labs from Argentina. And when we started doing this, of course, she was thinking of super 35 or 35, and like kind of big frame, and a budget that we never got to raise. So it was kind of challenging for me to say, well, then after the 35 wasn't happening, they did test in 16, but she really wanted, a more horizontal format, so 16 wasn't right, and I was like, HD, but HD for somebody who's studying pinhole is kind of almost offensive. So I had to say, listen, I just made a film, I did it in HD, La Summer of La Bollita, because I wanted to have the freedom to be in the countryside with no lights, with the kids running around. I was like, the results for me were really good. The DP is really very good. He's a very young DP, but with tons of experience, and more than anything with first-time filmmakers. He also did Anna Peterbargs now, so the recommendation has been coming along. So I said, let's try, give it, And I would say that the secret, because for me, this film doesn't look like HD at all. But it's a very good DP that knows very well the camera he was working with. But I would say that the final component that was very important is once this film was shot, they brought it to Argentina. To also, everything was kind of done with a lot of love and care, but very, very small. Like in Argentina, we have two labs. One that is big and industrial, and that's kind of the prints for Latin America, for Disney, so it's like tons of prints. And another one that is very small, operated basically by 3 people, but they do tests and they change emulsions. They change the how you say, the stock. And that is key, because if you have a lab that all it's looking for is a perfect, pristine definition, they will not change the stock. They will not change the liquids they're using for 5 prints or 10 prints. Those are the numbers we're talking about here. They are doing 600 prints. So we found this lab, and I had tried it with my film before, so Julia had some faith, but she really was incredibly precise and obsessive with the whole process and stayed. And I think the film looks, every time I see it, I'm very happy the way it looks.
Yes. Question about the precise region in Brazil where the film was shot, and if you could speak a little bit more about the cast, especially about the non-actors who were in the film.
Well, the region is northeast of Rio, like 4 hours. I mean, it's not so far, but the roads and the mountains make it kind of not so close. And in fact, this little village is created with pieces of different places. Like the church is not exactly in the same place where the train tracks are, and the house of Madalena is not exactly where Antonio's bar is. Everything is kind of close by, but it's not like she found everything ready to shoot. She really scouted for a long time, and that was one of the things we had to show, possible investors. Very beautiful pictures of pretty special places. And in terms of actors, the only actors are Madalena, Antonio, Rita, and the priest that is from Argentina. It's Ricardo Merkin, that is part of the co-production deal. But basically, Julia was comfortable having somebody who was not from there, because what she kind of explained to me early on, because when you start co-production, you have to kind of follow these things. I was like, will you be comfortable with somebody who can speak Portuguese, but is not? And basically, she explained that always being a very, very cosmopolitan area, because of the fazendas brought a lot of, French and even Arabs and Italians, so it wouldn't be something that would kind of break the story.
Priests very often are from Spain or Portugal.
Yeah,
so
it's true.
So I thought he must be a Gallego.
Yeah, it's true. The other thing that Julia, talking about the non-actors.
Non-actors.
She always tells the story that, people think, they're so quiet and observant. In general, they were talking all the time. And like she really, she wanted the film to be quiet and silent, but it's not like these people were always so quiet. She always feels like she needs to say, these people talk a lot and very alive.
Yes.
Me too. I'm amazed at Julia because she's very young. You saw her, she's about to have a baby in a few months. But she has a very tender and generous heart and a great intelligence. And as a filmmaker, she's incredibly rigorous, which is something that you don't see that often in, young people. She's incredibly rigorous and knows very much what she wants, yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
That's part of the pinhole. That's part of the very slow exposition that kind of creates this. Yes, all the black and whites are true pinhole.
Did the shooting time have to be cut down because some of the actors were older?
Yes and no. There was like some adjustments, like scenes that probably were simplified at a certain point. But it was a concern because a lot of, shooting is the most expensive part of a production, and transportation is expensive, and of course, everything that adds time, adds complications. But it was kept pretty much, small. There were only, I don't even remember now. That's a good thing about when a film works, you don't remember how many days you were over. But in general, it was a very contained production, yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
There is a documentary also.
Mhm.
Right?
The documentary is called, I think I said the wrong name, it's Dia dos Pais. I think I said Casa dos Pais. Okay. And she's been an editor for a while. She edited two of her mothers. Her mother is a filmmaker. She edited 2 of the features. She's right now editing a first feature and a short film. And she's trying to think of the next, but she's taking it slowly. The film has, started in Venice last year, has done a very nice round of festivals, which kept her pretty busy until now. I think she just left because she's going to France. She's presenting in Toulouse tomorrow. And after that, in May, she's asked to stay put because she has to have a baby. So I think, I don't know much more of what's next. I didn't, I've been there when you are exhausted and people ask you, so what's next? So I didn't ask her that yet. I'm going to let her rest.
Yes.
The
What camera?
F900, it's a Sony HD with tape. It's like for now it's old, It's like yes, as you can see, well, like for instance, when you have the scenes in the kitchen, of course, it's more than what you see. There's more light, but really very minimal, yeah.
Okay. One more. Yes. How could you charge her iPod if there was no electricity in the place?
I guess she had extra batteries.
As Brazilians often say, Deus é brasileiro. God is Brazilian. Okay, I'm afraid that's all we have time for. Julia, thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
doing the
Richard.
Q&A.
Thank you.
You for coming.